Let's make dua inshallah we'll start. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma anta as-salam minka as-salam tabarakta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Allahumma rabbana yassir wa la tu'assir wa tamam bil khair wa bika nasta'in ya fattah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma rabbana zidna ilman nafi'a wa 'amalan mutaqabbala wa rizqan wasi'a wa shifa'a min kulli da'. فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, continue our topic of inheritance, death and inheritance. We have reached a point where we are actually discussing the two-third portion of the will, and we were mentioning from last class the proportions or amounts due and to whom they are due to. And those determinations were already mentioned to us in the Quran and in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we say in some cases, ijma or qiyas or analogy is made dependent, founding on principles that were set before by the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the tabi'een, and so on. From that, we will be able to determine whether or how or who should receive, depending on the cases that were before us. So generally, when we looked at the topic of this part of the will, where we discuss the persons who are entitled to receive from Quran and Sunnah, we are saying that we don't have a choice in amounts. They are already determined to us by Quran and Sunnah. That's already clear. What we have to understand is where and to whom that amount is allotted to. And last class we started to discuss those amounts, and just as a reminder, you should bear in mind that those that were found in the Quran, they were 5, and they were basically speaking about whom? The father, the mother, the husband, the wife, daughter. These are the 5, and obviously the son being the asaba, the one who receives the residue. So these are the 5 Quran mentioned about that they must have a share, and amongst these there are some who will have a partial reduction dependent on the people who are left behind. So a father might have a share, but his share can be reduced dependent on who is alive to inherit as well. He has to get a share, but it may not be the exact amount. It could be a reduced amount. Like the mother as well. Alright? The wife as well. Okay? Now, that we found out and looked at from the last class, and we started the process of doing exclusion on page 624, where we started to mention who are entitled and who will bomb them out. In other words, who will cause them to come out of the list of people who are to inherit. And when we look at this list from 624, we just run through quickly, we said that when we look at this list, amongst the groups, the grandfather excluded in the presence of. So a grandfather becomes excluded from inheritance by the father. A grandmother, maternal or paternal side, meaning either side doesn't matter, becomes excluded by the father. Once the father exists, they become excluded. The grandmother likewise by the father. The granddaughter by the father and the son. The real sister becomes excluded when there is a son, grandson, father. So the uterine brother, sister, those are those relationships that one would have from their mother's side. In other words, the mother may have children from different fathers. She may marry once, then marry again. After divorce, marry, have children in different relationships. Those are the uterine that have a different consideration when it comes to inheritance. Alright? So they are also what? Excluded by what? When the presence of a son, a grandson, and so on. Sharers who are excluded by as sharers but inherits as a residue are granddaughters. By 2 or more, they become what? Excluded if they have more of them. Alright, daughters. If there are more daughters, granddaughters what? Drop out. Real sisters drop out when they are who? By 1 or more daughters or son's daughter. So real sisters automatically come out of the what? Picture. The cosanguine sister, that by 1 or more daughters or granddaughters, or by 2 or more. And those are the children of the father who has more than 1 wives and have children with each of these what? Mothers. Alright? So, those are the 2 types of people or groups and how they'll be knocked off. So, in this category of people here, we see who can be excluded based on the presence of these group who are in the other side here. Alright? And concerning against preference in shares, we have what? Sharers whose shares are reduced. And this is the group we talked about previously. When in the presence of others. And this is firstly the husband. The husband has a full share of a half. According to Quran, a half. But that share can be reduced to a quarter dependent on who? When they are children. A wife likewise. She will receive a quarter, but when they are children, she will only get what? 1/6. A mother will receive a third, but only receive a sixth when they are what? Children and sons and so on. Alright, that's the mother. Granddaughter a half, but 1/6 with one daughter. And the consanguine sister will receive a half and 1/6 with a real sister. And understand, this only if these situations appear. In other words, prior to this, they will totally get knocked off immediately by the upper half of the list. By the husband, the wife, mother, sons, and so on. Those are the lower level of the list. They will also what? Come off the list immediately. Alright? Now, going on to the next section here, again, on preference of shares and status, we look at those people who always inherit and are never excluded. And they are in what condition? The son is a primary heir. He must receive something. Alright? A primary heir. He has to get some sort of inheritance. If alone, he takes the whole residue. He takes all that remains. After the mother gets a share, the wife gets the share, and sisters will share with the brothers, but the son generally would share with what? The sisters. 2 or more sons equally divide the residue of whatever remains after whoever receives their shares, right? Then the residue now, son 1 or more divides the residue with daughters. In other words, that son brother sister relationship, they will share in a ratio of 2 to 1 if he has sisters with him. All right? And that's a clear-cut case. Now, excludes descendants of father and mother, brothers and sisters, real, consanguine and neutrine, sisters and real brothers in that relationship, and descendants of grandfather, uncles, and uncles' sons. These will be excluded totally once the above group is there concerning the son. Once the son is there, all these other people there have nothing to get. All right? The sisters will get, wife going to get, and that son is going to get, and with that, the mother, if she's existing there, will also what? Get. Okay? Likewise, the father. Now, daughter, and this is the next relationship. She will always what? Inherit as well, and never excluded. If she is by herself, for example, she will get a half single without any what? Brothers, any son. If she has no brothers with her, she will what? And she's the only daughter to that person, she gets what? A half. 2/3 if there are more than one what? Sisters and no sons. In other words, no brothers with them. Alright? But all of them are going to share what? 2/3. The residue with son, male and female. Now, if she have what? Brothers, the whole system change whatever. She now go to a ratio of 2 to 1. Once she has brothers in her relationship, she now changes over to 2 to 1. But if she's by herself in a relationship, she goes straight up to a half. And if she has sisters with her, she gets 2/3. And if she's with brothers, the whole table turn and they go to 2 to 1. Brothers 2 share, sister 1 share. Alright? So we understand. Sons and daughters, they are the prime heir of inheritance, and they also are part of the residue. In other words, when everybody else get their share, they become the what? Persons who will receive last, and in the proportion of what they will receive. The only difference is that if they're by themselves, they get more, and if they are together in a combined brother-sister, they go 2 to 1. And if they have number of brothers, then they share according to the full amount that we have. There are 2 or more sons equally divide whatever the residue is. Whatever remain back, they get just divided in the number of brothers they have, or as the case would be, sons as the case would be. Alright? But once they have sister and brother relationship, 2 to 1 is the relationship there in the shares. Any amount of brothers, any amount of sisters. once they remain, that's how we're going to share as sons and daughters. This is how we're going to share the wealth. All right? Let's look at the grandson. They become excluded by a living son. So the father, for example, has a number of sons, all right, in that relationship, all right. The grandson, meaning this is his grandchild. So he has what? A son alive, plus grandsons. So the grandsons have no place in that relationship. So you're talking about who? The father, the grandfather died, his son's still there, and the son also had a what? A son called the grandson. But the son won't have grandson won't have nothing to get because his son is still alive. The father takes precedence over the son. That's how you call it. Closer to the what? Throne then. As you say, closer to the seat would be the son. Next in line. So he now gets excluded by the presence of the son. So a grandson is a primary heir in the absence of the living son. If his father died, then he take that position immediately. But if his father is there, can't take that position. If alone, he takes the whole residue, in other words, remain behind. Because he taking the position of his father's position there. Alright? Residue. 2 or more grandsons equally divide the residue amongst themselves. Just like the son would do in a case, you know what I mean? They go back in the same thing of dividing. Now, the grandson divides the residue with granddaughters in the same ratio as brother and sister would divide. 2 to 1. If that's the scenario. In other words, if that scenario develops, you don't have what? Granddaughter and grandsons living. Then they will go in the same relationship as a son and daughter would divide the wealth of their father. Alright? And that's a straight cut case there. Excluded, and they now become excluded with what? The presence of the son. Good? And the grandson is not excluded by a daughter. Notice the difference. If his auntie was alive, his position as his father, remember he just take his father's position. So he what? He can't get bumped out. He's still there. Even though what? His auntie is alive. The daughter of the what? The father. His grandfather. She has a share to get. She's still entitled. But he, with her, will collect something. Yeah, this thing, the grandson comes to effect here. That's what it's basically saying there. Right? And he takes a residue if any grandson converts a granddaughter into a residue. Notice that a granddaughter, they also take that same position. But the auntie there is supposed to get something as well because she's a daughter of that father. And is actually his father who actually passed away, but he comes in the position of his father. Alright? Now what's the position of the granddaughter excluded by a living son? That's the first principle. Once the son of the father is there, right? He takes precedence and grandchildren have no place in the whole scenario. Whether it's grandson, granddaughter, they out totally. But let's assume now a condition applied that they're not there. So the first thing that happen, half a granddaughter could receive. Half a share. If alone without any sons or daughters of the, or grandsons. No grandsons, they get a half of the complete inheritance. The deceased as a daughter, yeah. So this granddaughter now becomes the position as a daughter would be received in that place, yeah. If there's no daughter, right? It's simple, it doesn't matter, just get it along with it. 2/3, more than 2, unless if you have more than 1 granddaughters, this is what's going to happen. More than 2 without sons, daughters, and grandsons. That's a straight case. Again, we know about that as above before. Mentioned there if they were daughters, right? 1/6. They will get 1/6 with single daughter, with their aunties around. All right? If the aunties were around with them, they get 1/6. Yeah. 2 or more divided 1/6 equally among all of them is more than 1 granddaughter. All right? The residue in the presence of a grandson, if there's that relationship like son and daughter, they'll have a residue together, 2 to 1 ratio, right? And excluded in the presence of 2 or more daughters. Look at the situation here. If they have more than 2 or more daughters, aunties, they get wiped out. All right? and excluded in the presence of a son. That's a straightforward one from before already. Yeah. So it's important to bear this in mind. Now, the position of the father. We know the position of the son. We know the position of the daughter, the grandson, the granddaughter. What is the position of the father? The father of the deceased always inherits and is never excluded once he's there. Alright? Once he existing, he always entitled to receive once he's a father. Alright? And what is the position and how much he receives? 1/6 in the presence of a son or a grandson. And as we understand the rule of son and grandson already. Right? What precedent takes place there. And he only getting 1/6. Alright? Is who come first? Yeah. And once the father is there, he what? Gets 1/6. And 1/6 plus the residue with daughters or son's daughter. In other words, who existed now? No sons. No sons. Or grandsons. It only have daughters. So if there's daughters, he will be the male that is now entitled to what? Collect the remainder. 1/6 plus the residue, whatever remains after the daughters or the granddaughter gets whatever that they get. Alright? Next, we have what? The residue in the absence of the child or son's child. No children, he collecting all. At the end of the day. That's what's going to happen to the residue, what remains behind. Alright, so we understand now? Son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, and the father. Alright? Let's look at the position of the mother now. Okay? The mother, she's also always going to what? Inherit. She's not going to be excluded at no point in time. And that's provided she's what? Alive. And she will receive a half of the total in the absence of children, a child or a son's child with one brother or one sister. This, she will only get a half in the absence of these. In the absence. Then the half will take position. But if any of them here, child, son's child, and with one brother or one sister, that is the position. Alright? 1/6, however, now she will receive, which is the actual amount. Normally the case would be if the condition exists like this. With a child or a son's child, she only gets 1/6 just like the father. Alright? If the father was alive. With 2 or more brothers and sisters of consanguine, meaning consanguine again, the father have what? A number of wives and their what? Children. When you these number of wives, this is what we're talking about. Brothers and sisters. Or one brother and one sister together. 1/6. So we're looking at the mother now only having what? 1/6. A third of the balance provided with the spouse. In other words, with the husband or wife being alive of that person who died. Alright? So if it was her daughter or if it was her son, it will depend on husband or wife situation, who remain back in that relationship. And father, she will only get a third. That is a condition that must apply if that is the case. She will take a third of the balance after giving fixed shares to the surviving spouse. Alright? So we covered now son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson, father, then mother. And now we're going on to the next position, husband. In case husband alive, wife died, he always inherits. Husband must always inherit and never excluded. But the conditions of his inheritance is dependent on these things. First, the share amount. He firstly gets a quarter of a share with children and son's children. He gets what? A quarter of the share of the 2/3 wealth that remain there, provided what? With children being there. Alright? Or the son's children being there. Good? Now, he gets a half in the absence of what? A child or the son's child. Once there's no children, he gets how much? He goes up now to a half. You understand the position of the father now? Like the what? Mother is not so. She gets a half in the absence of the same thing. It's not so. So father and mother goes in the same position, but in the actual presence of child, the mother gets 1/6 and the father gets a quarter. You understand now the difference?
Before the residue.
Yeah, before residue, yeah. Alright, so but residue will go back to the father eventually, if he's in that case to receive it. Yeah. So this is founded in the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? He says, وَعَنْ زَيْدِ بْنِ ثَابِتٍ, he says, أَنَّهُ قَالَ فِي الْإِمْرَاتِ تَرْكُهُ زَوْجَهَا وَأَبَوَيْهَا لِزَوْجِهِ نِصْفُهُ وَلِأُمِّهِ ثُلُث مَا بَقِيَ. So the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned hadith from Zayd ibn Thabit. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, he says, if a woman dies and she leaves her husband and her father, abawaihi lizawji, half for him, and then a third for who remained from the father side and the mother. Alright? So that is what is mentioned in the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we covered now husband. Prior to that, mother, father, grandson, granddaughter. Cover what again? Son and daughter. Now we're going out to the other one from the husband, the wife. So we're not going to mix up what? Mother, father position, husband and wife. Understand? Mother and father, husband and wife, sons and daughters, granddaughters, grandson. Now we're going to husband, now we're going to wife.
We confirm that father and mother will
Always be part of it. Like son and daughters, right? And like that relationship, now we're going to the wife. What is the position of the wife? The wife, maximum 4 wives, put that in front. That is how much wives could actually inherit, not more. Must be 4, if it is 1 as the case would be, but maximum only 4. Alright? Always inherits and never gets excluded. Alright? And the amount a wife will receive, 1/8 if they are with children and sons' children. 1 or more wives will share the amount equally. So if you have more than 1 wife, they all get in the same 1/8. Nothing more than that. Don't have 1/8 and 1/8 and 1/8. No. 1/8 divided by 4, whether it's 3, whether it's 2, or that 1 take the 1/8 and finish. Alright? So that is what's going to remain for the wives. Now, in the absence of what? Children, that 1/8 will now go up to a quarter. Alright? So in the absence of children, the wives will now get a quarter. Like what? The husband who gets what? A quarter when they are what? Children. But his amount increased in the other way, a half. But they want only increase a quarter with children. 1/8, a quarter. Husband is a quarter, then a half. Alright, you understand the difference? Good. Also mentioned in hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ma'aqal, he says, Ibn Yasar al-Muzni, he says, Qala sami'tu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he says, Utiya bi faridati fiha jaddun. Concerning now the grandfather, you're going to talk about, mentioned here in this hadith. He is also what? Entitled to receive, but he also what? Is excluded. Thuluthan or sulusan. 6th is mentioned here. Alright? A third or a 6th, dependent on the case. Now, concerning the grandfather, so husband, wife finished, mother finished, father finished, son finished, daughter finished already. Alright? Now we're going to who? Grandfather. Now the grandfather, yes, he could receive, but his amount is in a position where once the father there, once the what? Son's there, grandson, knock out clean. So excluded by what? Father. The first position, one time gone. 1/6 in the presence of a son or grandson. Alright? Now that's in the position if the what? If they are only there, he take the position of the father, right? The grandfather. Now 1/6 with a daughter or son and plus the residue. That is in the what? Absence of what? Sons and grandsons and father. Alright? And then he falls into what? Residue. So once the father is around, he's what? In a boss position. But once the father is there, he get what? Knock out immediately. Equal, and now, do we know likely cases that maybe sometimes that happen, where the father outlived the what? son. And still have what? His grandsons there with him. Position like that happen. Right, we see what? Grandson will take that position here. Right? So we have now equal share. They come in the other aspect of it, the Hanafi viewpoint is that he will become an equal sharer with the coherent what? Brothers and sisters to the minimum of 1/6. If what? He exists with them. Alright? And the residue, of course, in the absence of a child or the son's child, he takes the position as the father, now being the what? Grandfather, once he's not there. The grandfather is not there, sorry. Alright, so the father is the key between what? That relationship of the grandfather. So if the father not there, grandfather take the position. But if the father is there, grandfather gets dropped off. So grandfather takes father position when father is not there. Alright? Important to understand the relationship. Grandmother now. Because you understand father, mother, prior. Husband, wife. Now we're talking about what? Grandfather and grandmother. We talk about granddaughter and grandson already. Now understand grandfather. Grandfather only comes in place of the father. No, grandmother as well. In place of the mother. Excluded by mother. Once mother there, grandmother out of the whole system. Because she's only a replacement to the mother. 1/6 inheritance as what? Mother would have received in the absence. Alright? But she will never get more than 1/6 as a sharer in any condition. That is it. Finish. Excluded. Paternal as well as maternal grandmothers are excluded by a mother. Once the mother there, both sides grandmother finish. Alright? In a relationship of inheritance. It becomes excluded. Excluded paternal grandmothers is excluded by what? A father as well. And they become knocked out automatically. And 2 or more grandmothers equally divide 1/6 share. And that's in case there are two mothers basically around from both sides. Alright? Themselves. Good. So we covered most of the immediate relationships. Now, just to that now, we covered above, grandfather above, they are above. We cover below, grandson, granddaughters, they are below. And now we're going to the sides now. Who are to the sides? Sisters and brothers. They are to the sides of the deceased. Equal match, then we call it. Now, real sisters. What is the position of the real sister in a whole relationship of inheritance? A brother dies, or even one of our sisters, what happens? Excluded right away by a son, a grandson, and a father. Right? Before the sister, the real sister. So, in other words, once the son is there, say right away. So, the presence of a son takes away your own sister from receiving anything. Bear that in mind. Alright? The grandson as well. And also the father. And now, in case, let's know the condition now. They're not there. What is her position then? She entitled to receive. If they're not there, she entitled to receive. What she entitled to receive? A half. If alone in the absence of son or daughters or grandson or brothers. We know that. Right? She entitled to receive half. But all the above must clear in the absence of all of them. That is the only way. The next way now, 2/3 if more than 2 of those what? Sisters exist. They share a 2/3 portion, whether it's 2, 3, 4, how much of them it may be, it doesn't matter. Without sons, daughters, and granddaughters are all brothers existing. Once these people existing, all of sisters what? Get wiped off. Alright? Now, again, they become residuary, people who receive the balance of wealth with brothers from their same what? Category in the absence of the other people, in the same ratio of 2:1. Alright? But once you see sons, grandson, and father there, all the story here you're talking about closer now. But in the absence of them, this comes into effect. Alright? Residue if coexist with daughter or son's daughter. If they are there with the daughter or the son. Now, we're talking about the daughters, we're talking about what? We're talking about sons, the son, daughter. So, they are all what? Women in this relationship here. inheritance. So now she's entitled if there are only women in the relationship. But once there is son, grandson, and father, all male, wipe out clean. You understand? But there is a case where it only exists like that. All right? So we understand, sister. We understand son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson. We understand? Wife, mother, father, mother. Finish now. And we're going to real sister. So we understand real sister now. That's the person existing there. What about the real brother? So his brother died or his sister died. What is his position? All right? He becomes excluded. A real brother becomes excluded by who? A son. Once that person, his brother, had a son, finish. He had nothing to collect. All right? Nothing to collect. If by chance now what? The son had a son, grandson. He had knocked out already. All right? The father, their father alive. He comes out what? Knocked off, excluded. Grandfather alive. So the ascendant and the descendant takes off what? Those to the what? Side of you. You understand what happens? Ascendant and descendants, father, grandfather, sons, grandsons, they are what? More privileged in receiving than those who are to your equal sides, brothers and sisters. You get the picture now? So this is how it is mentioned here in the laws of inheritance according to Quran and Sunnah. So precedence are given to them. Now the consanguine sister, remember again, these are who? Your father who had a number of wives with children. Alright? So these are sisters and brothers from what? Different mothers. Okay? So the relationship here is really different, you know. It might be the father here and the mother and the brothers and sisters for one mother and father. If one of those brothers die, what about the other wife who is also what? From the same blood relationship with this father, but they can what? Have the same kind of relationship in inheritance. Even though they share the same father. But the real brothers and sisters is from that real mother, father first. They come first. Same father, same mother. Right? Yes, you have a number of wives, but that different category. So this is what you have to bear in mind now. What is their position in these categories? So when you have a number of wives, and you have a number of children, a number of wives, your inheritance system is a little more what? A little more, not complicated, but a little more what? More writing to do. And more calculations to do. Alright? So here in this relationship now, we say these relationship, if you have these sisters existing from that relationship, they become excluded by who? The son, grandson, father, grandfather, and real brother. Real brother. Understand the relationship we talk about it? Real brother in that first relationship. Mother, husband, wife, their children. Real brother. Alright? That position there makes them excluded because of the presence of these people here. Alright? So, understand who's this people talking about here, right? This sister, she gets knocked out immediately in the presence of this. Alright? So, in the absence of that now, in the absence of these people, let's see what they'll get now. In the absence of that condition, she could receive, but these people must disappear first. She could receive, but that group of people mustn't be around. And firstly, she get a half. If alone in the absence of son, daughter, grandson, or brothers, and real sisters in that particular close relationship first. Alright? 2/8, if it is more than 2 in the absence of sons, daughter, you know, there's more than 2 sisters in that same category relationship, that same mother, 2 sisters, talking about that. Alright? But in the absence of these same category again, sons, daughters, grandsons, or brothers and real sisters. That's the next case. 2/3 if more than 2 in the absence of son, daughter, grandson, or brothers and real sisters. Understand this next category again. 1/6 when she coexists with real sisters. 1/6. She, along with her sisters, they only get what? 1/6 share. 2 or more consanguine sisters with one real sister divides 1/6. Now, you understand what I'm saying? You have 4 wives, you have daughters she have sisters in other, what they call stepsisters. But if she having a real group, she gets 1/6. If it takes sisters from the other set of parents, they're going to break down and get smaller. If they are alone existing. If they are alone, they're existing. That's what you have. But this total group of people here, this set of sisters, will be wiped out once you have the first category of people. Right? But that's only conditions that will apply. Now they become entitled to receive as well as a consanguine brother with them, converts and exclude consanguine sisters into the same residue as 2-to-1 relationship. If they had the same blood relationship, mother, father, they get that same relationship, as well as in the other case, when she exists with daughter and granddaughter, she's also becoming what? A residue with them in that same relationship. That is provided have none of the other cases existing. Excluded in the presence of 2 or more real sisters, she becomes excluded. And we know that already. Excluded by son, grandson, father, also excluded by grandfather according to Imam Abu Hanifa. Once the grandfather there, they also get knocked off. Equal sharer in residue, except in the Hanafi law, she will co-inherit with her grandfather in the ratio of 2-to-1. All right, that's considered the consanguine sister. Now, brothers in that relationship. We talk about brothers and sisters before, how easy they get knocked out. We talk about relationship now with brothers and sisters with different mothers in this relationship. Right? What are those brothers with different mothers? Excluded by the son, grandson, father, and grandfather. Same case. All right? But if they are absent, they become the residuary as what? A son will receive. In the absence of son, grandson, or father, or real brother, he takes the residue in the presence of real sisters. In the case of real sisters, takes the fixed share and the residue, if any, goes to the consanguine brother. He takes the full residue, if alone, and shares it with consanguine sisters in the ratio of 2-to-1, as we know that is man-woman relationship. All right? 2 or more consanguine brothers equally divide the residue among themselves. Equal sharers in the case where you have Imam Abu Hanifa, he mentions, except in Hanafi law, he co-inherit with his grandfather, if he exists. All right? Excluded by son, grandson, father, and real brothers, also excluded by grandfather, according to Imam Abu Hanifa. Now, this is the personal one. It's different mothers. What if this is actually with his father, there, the mother relationship there, his grandfather. Right? Obviously, get the same grandfather just them too, but in this personal relationship. Share the uterine brothers and sisters. This is now what the what? Mother having what? One husband, divorce this one, she has a children this one, then she marry back somebody else, have what? Children again, next husband, divorce, next set of children, then married again, and have next set of children again. They have a few set of children with different what? Husbands. All right? So this complicates the case. Uterine. This set here is where the mother having children with different husbands. She married, divorce, married, divorce. All right? She ain't going to have 4 husbands. All right? But she marries, divorce, and have a relationship like this. So they make the cases a little more difficult. So in this case, a uterine brother and sister excluded by children, sons, children, and by father and grandfather of the immediate relationship that she has with that father or that husband. So each family is considered by its own unit, and that's the way you check it. So in this unit, if this mother has with this husband this amount, then she has with her next husband and next other children, the same mother, but it's different what? Fathers. So each unit now will be considered differently because it's used by the father unit now. All right? So you check it as this. Yeah. So in this relationship, 1/6 if alone, whether male or female, they get 1/6. 1/3, 2 or more, whether male or female, or both together, they will divide 1/3 equally among themselves, irrespective of male or female. And that is according to the relationship of that wife to the husband that she was with that children. All right? Excluded by children, sons, children, father, and grandfather. And that was already thought about before already. Once that comes into place, they what? Drop out automatically. All right? Now, So we cover all the complicated cases here. This page is complicated pages. The complicated sect, where you have duplication with what? Number of fathers or number of mothers. All right? Number of fathers or number of mothers in having children in groups there. And that's where the consanguine and uterine relationship is there. All right? And this is the hardest part of it, but it must be included because they are what? Children as well who might be entitled to receive. Now, we just want to finish this piece of page and we close off, inshallah. Right? On page 628. Some special notes, right? One must consider while in the distribution of inheritance. All right? Well, to the inheritors. The inheritors in general are divided into distinct categories. The sharers and the residuaries. The sharers are the ones who get a certain fixed share. The Quran tells you how much, the Hadith tells you how much. The residuary are those people who receive the remainder, and usually they are the what? Sons and daughters, if they come first. Or in the absence of them, it could be what? Father or mother combined, as the case would be. Or in the absence of that, it could be what? A brother or a sister, or it could be the son or the daughters, as the case would be, as you mentioned before. All right? So those are the residuary people who can receive. But the real sharers, fixed sharers, are people who are there. Quran mentioned who they are, they must get something, wife and so on and thing, right? The sharers are those inheritors who have fixed shares assigned to them by the noble Quran. The residuaries are those inheritors who take from the inheritance after the shares of the inheritors of the first category have been given. And that is important to recognize. Because to formulate a case of sharing out the proportions in the two-thirds wealth, we must be able to identify, firstly, sharers and who are the ones to receive the residue, the remaining amount, and how much that group is. In other words, who are those people? If you have 5 sons, 6 daughters, no, those are the residuaries. They're the main core. Now you have what? Wife. There you might have a mother and a father. All right? The son died. So the wife has something to get in a fixed share. The mother has a fixed share to get. The father has a fixed share to get. But the sons and daughters, they are the prime what? Residuaries. They are the one who receive everything afterwards. So you must know this position, how much they are. And then you calculate now, if you have 5 sons, 5 by 2, 10 shares already. And 6 girls, 6 and 10, 16 shares. And you check the number of shares now, 2/3, 1/3 share, and then say, look at the rest now. So you must fix and appropriate these things. You must know your sharers who get in that group, and the residuary as well.
Like a father, sons and daughters.
Right.
They're not the sharers?
A father. Yeah, that's what you're saying here. The father, the sons and daughters, they are the ones, they're not sharers in terms of like the main core sharers. If you have a wife existing and the wife and the mother or the father of this particular father, right? This particular person who died. So the person who died, he has sons and daughters. Plus he has his father alive and the mother alive. And his wife. So they are fixed sharers. No, those are fixed sharers. The mother, the father, and the wife, they are fixed shares. You can prepare for them. The daughter has a share too as well. But her share changed position because of the fact that she has what? Brothers. So she falls in the residue section now, where she what? Goes in the ratio of 2 to 1. So now it depends on how much brothers and how much sisters. And you work out that amount of shares, and then you go back now to the rest of sharers who want to get their fixed share, and then you now start to work out the total now to divide everything over. And that's why we use LCM. Lowest common multiple now to divide the shares. All right? It sounds like plenty, but in fact, these things, the Sahabas, subhanAllah, we'll come to some of the hadiths. They were asked, they didn't have to go and check which page number, who getting 1/3, who getting 1/6. Subhanallah, they say answer like that. Answer off the head and tell you who getting what portion of share of the bat and how to divide everything one time. They were like calculators already existing with all these fractions. And we think about Sahabas and these companions, they were intelligent people. Not like us today who are struggling to even survive amongst the computers and even electronic devices to work out these things and still have to go back to pages. They would do it off the bat. Subhanallah. All right, we stop there at that point, inshallah. I wanted to continue about what? We crossed time. Inshallah, next week we'll continue. What time we have? You have more time again? Yeah, 5 minutes again? Well, that'll be nice to take the 5 minutes, inshallah. Okay. So in case, we move on to the next paragraph there, right? So in case any or all inheritors of the first category are present, all right? In case any or all inheritors of the first category are present, they shall be given their stipulated portions, that is in the shares, of the inheritance first. Yeah. So they get their share first, and we know those are fixed shares. Wife, father, mother. Once they're there, they get their share. But once you have sons and daughters, their position change. They no longer just get a fixed share. They go out to residue state. They collecting the balance, but you must know how much. All right? And then the balance shall be distributed among the second category of inheritors. Male getting 2 and the female getting 1. All right? But that number of males and females must be worked out in order for the distribution of the first set of shares as well. So you know how it's going along, how many shares in it. In other words, you have to know how much shares to cut the cake in. You can't say, well, I have a son and daughter, and you cut 1/6 and 1/8, and you know what is 1/6 and 1/8 of the whole share if you don't know how much the rest of the cake is supposed to really be. If you had to get 21 pieces of cake, and then you start a cut, all right? But first of all, you can't work out 1/6 and then work out a quarter if you don't know the rest here. You have to know all the amounts first. And then you're going to say, well, you're getting 2 slices, you're getting 3 slices. The remaining shares, them sharing it 2-to-1 ratio. The remaining 12 or 14 slices. You understand? That must be understood. Otherwise, you're going to share the cake and then only get 1 slice or even a piece of slice. But first, you have to work out that portion. So, in the case any or all inheritors of the first category do not exist, all the property and assets of the deceased should be distributed among the inheritors of the second category according to their specified shares. Now we're talking about, the first category of sharers are who? Father, mother, wife, husband if it's the case, whichever there, and sons and daughters. If that first category gone, then we go to the second category now. Grandson, granddaughter, talking about brothers, sisters across, those are different category. But prior to them, who? First category. So first category, if you're not there, then you go to what? Second category. Across, and then the lower ones below. Right? Below first, and then across. So we go on top, below, for sons and daughters, and then across. Right? So it's fairly simple once we use the directions we work with. Next. If there exists only one inheritor of either category, so one in the first category and one in the second category, you have a what? A father or probably a mother remaining and a great-grandson or a grandson as the case would be. Or probably a sister on the second category or probably a brother on the other side. That we have remaining in your family. Everybody else wiped out. So you end up with what? Probably a mother or father, or probably a wife, and you have one person way on this side or on that side, a sister or a brother or a great grandson or something, and they lie down. That's all you have remaining. They now have a different category now. So if there exists only one inheritor of the category, he will take all the assets of the deceased except he be the husband, except he be the husband and the wife, who are entitled to receive only their fixed shares. If this situation, the balance remaining after given to share of the share of the spouse will go to the what? Nearest close relative, distant relative. And if there is no distant kindred, then the spouse can take the balance by return. In other words, there's a case called Rod, where if there's none there now, everything must come back to him. You understand? If no one exists, he have a fixed share, he must get a share. But if nobody exists again, it comes back to him. But in our society today, think about that. You give anybody, nobody. If you cross this limit here, you know my blood relationship. You're gone. You see nobody getting anything else. But that's why, the Fuqaha, the jurists today and in the past, this law of inheritance is one of the most Dangerous law. Why? Because a person would have all his wealth, and in the very last portion of his life, what happened to him? It throws it away just by the failure of the law of inheritance. That's why understanding this principle makes you understand, if you could give in front, give. Take care of all the sadaqat al-jariyah, do all the business in front first. Handle all the business. So don't wait till you come and you say, well, I live with all this wealth now, and I have a different person quite down the road, so, boy, all my children pass out and all this happened to me. And you still sit down with all this wealth doing what? Doing what? So it's important to understand these things. How to use your wealth. I ain't saying not to give your distant relative anything, What I'm saying here is that if you want, at least consider what you're doing with your wealth. All right? And last piece in this paragraph, I close. If there does not exist any heir of either category, the property will go to the kindred, then to the master of an emancipated slave, and lastly to the Baitul Mal, the treasury. Nobody to collect? Drop everything in the treasury and finish. All right? So the last place it going is where? The treasury. Inshallah. You stop there today and make dua, inshallah. اللهم امين اللهم انت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والاكرام سمعنا وطعنا غفرانك ربنا واليك المصير ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين